Okay. So the first thing that we need to do is go onto the Google Drive and download the next file that you want to do. So here, if we go into Google Drive, we have Psycho Buddy MA Team is the name of the folder. And then right now, if we go into unprocessed videos, the one we're going to work on right now is called the Chronic Pain Still 229. So if you go over to the three dots on the right, click that, and then click download, and then it's going to download that file. Now, I already downloaded that, and I have a specific file that I like to put all the unprocessed files, but whether it be video or audio or even just photographs. And so I always just, once things are downloaded, I put them into that file folder. That way they're really easy to find later. So I've already downloaded Chronic Pain. So let me close this down. All right, and now I opened DaVinci Resolve. Um, I have a file that I just call intro, and what this is, if you go into it, it's got just the introduction, which is like the first 6 seconds. Um, so that way, all we have to do when we go into this is change whatever the title is, and then it'll automatically, the rest of the intro will be complete. So, do you know what you want the whole thing to be? Chronic Pain with the title?
Um, let's wait till we get to the end. Can we wait till we watch the whole thing and then
We can't.
title it?
I'm just gonna put something in here as a folder for right now.
Okay.
Oops. Okay, the first thing you do is go into intro, and then as soon as you go into it, you need to save it as whatever new file before you make any changes. So save project as, and I'm just going to title this Chronic Pain for right now so we can find it. Now I'm going to go into where it says digital glitch here, kind of in the center. If I click on that, that's the part where we put Psycho Buddy MA and the title. And if you click on that and then go up to the right here, this area to the upper right is called the inspector. And that is what has whatever information is necessary about whatever you have activated in the bottom. So when I click digital glitch, that activates it. And then the inspector on the upper right is going to have um, basically any options of things that I can do with regards to whatever I have clicked. So digital glitch, I'm going to put in the small text chronic pain for right now. And that's the just the going title. Now, this is the edit screen. If you look at the very bottom of the screen, there are 7 different options at the bottom, and each one is a different page. Um, you generally start towards the left. Like if I go to the far left one, that's the media page. This is where you tell the program what media you're going to be using in the file that you're doing. So the first thing I have to do is go to that media page, and then I have on the left-hand side, I have Fin as a favorite. That's the file that I dump all the files into that I was talking about earlier. So if I scroll down to the bottom, it goes by date. So chronic pain is the bottom one here. And I just take that and I pull it down into the area below. That's the part that is telling the program I'm going to use that. So chronic pain is now down in that bottom area. Once everything that you're going to use is dragged into this bottom area, you don't need this page anymore. The second page is called the cut page. This is really for people who are going to be doing really big files like movies, full length movies. And if you want to be able to see the entire movie on the screen at the same time and be able to move files around in that movie. That's what this screen's for. So I really never, ever, ever use this. The third page down at the bottom is the edit screen. This is the main screen that we'll be using. So if you look up on the top left here, I'm going to click Media Pool. That shows you all the things that you put on the media page that you're allowed to use are now in the media pool here. So I'm going to click where it says chronic pain. I'm going to hold it and drag it down to the timeline. And on this, I'm going to pull it to the left. You see right here in the middle of the screen, there's that little horseshoe thing, and then there's a link. What those do is if I click on chronic pain, see how the audio file also activated? That's because those files are linked, the audio and the video. If you ever wanted to make an adjustment to one of those but not the other, you would have to unlink them first and then only activate the one that you want. So for instance, if I unlinked them here, now if I click off of them and just click on the video, now the audio doesn't also activate. So you could just make changes on the video portion. I usually like to leave these linked because that way the audio and the video won't, the voice is going to match up with the person's lips. You don't want those to be screwed up. So I'm going to activate both of those just by dragging them. And then I'm going to click on the link again, and that relinks those. Now, the other thing is that horseshoe. The horseshoe just means that you're going to snap to nearby things. And in this case, if I take the file with the video, and if I drag it slowly to the left, it's going to click and lock to the end of what was previous there without overlapping it and running over top of it. If I don't have that there, then if I pull this to the left, it'll actually drag it over top of what's already there. And you may want to do that in some cases, but in this case, I just want it to match up perfectly. So I'll click on the horseshoe, and then I could drag it in, and it'll click perfectly. Now, if I click up here on the timeline, this is where you're actually viewing. So the viewer up here on top is going to match up with wherever this line is. I'm going to put this to the very beginning here, and that's also going to lock with that with the horseshoe, so it'll just snap to that chronic thing or to the beginning of that file. And what I do here is I just listen. I look at Finn's face, make sure that there's not too much of a span before she starts talking here, but I don't want it to be too short either. So I'm just going to play this real quick.
Chronic pain.
That's actually a really decent amount of time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a fade in. To do a fade in, if you see where my cursor is right here over the video, on the left-hand side, there's that little white dot that appears when you've got your video highlighted. If you click that and hold it and then drag it to the right, that's going to allow you to do a fade in on just the video, not the audio. And I'm going to do it till it lines up, and it's just a little bit before she starts talking. So by the time she starts talking, it should be fully in. And now if you move to the beginning, you see it's fully black. And then as I play it, it zooms in. Now, so that's kind of how we usually start off every video. Is just changing the digital glitch, putting the title in there, going to the media page, adding the movie file that you're going to be putting in, coming back to the edit page, dragging it down onto the timeline down here, matching it up to the beginning or to the end of where the intro is, fading in by moving this little thing. And now what I usually do is I check the volume audio level. So Finn's pretty good at keeping audio very similar throughout her video taking session. So once you have it in basically the right spot, you don't have to do a lot after that. Now, to check the audio, on the bottom of the screen, the next to last page is called Fairlight. And this is the audio page. All this does is audio. So on here, I'm going to open up using the cursor. I'm going to move it right here so that it's in between audio 1 and bus 1. Click it, hold it, and then drag it down, and that opens these up so you can see the waveforms. And you can change the volume in 2 ways. So the first thing you could do is point to this little white line that's above the waveform, click it and hold it, and if you drag up, you can see it increases the volume, and if you drag down, it decreases it. And usually you can kind of get an idea about how loud it is just by the size of the waveform. So I'm going to increase it just a little bit so it's similar to the introduction. And now I'm going to play it. And if you look here on the top left, you want the loudest things to be in the top of the yellow here, about -10.
Pain syndrome is
And right now, these are a little bit lower.
scary to deal with. It's hard because
And that's
your
so
brain learns how to be.
we need to go, I think, just a hair louder. We don't want it really getting into the red, but this is 3.3 decibels. If you see, I've got it clicked, and I'm going to increase it to the next up, which should be 4.4. Now I'm going to play it again.
Till the
And you see how we're up a little bit higher in the yellow over here on the top left. And that looks good.
There's not a.
The other way you can change volume. Now that just changes it for one clip, whatever clip you're in. If you want to change it, I'm going to go back to the edit screen. If you want to change it for every video clip, because you can have multiple video clips on this same line that one after each other. If you want to change all the audio for all the clips at the same time, instead of doing it each individual clip, you go back into Fairlight, and then down here on the bottom right where it says audio 1, that will change the entire audio 1 line, including everything that's in it, no matter how many clips are on there. And you just move this slider up and down, and that will change that entire line in no matter how many clips are there. So that can be very useful, especially once you've done a lot of editing and you've got a lot of clips in there. And if you realize, wow, for some reason I, didn't make it loud enough, that's the way to do it. So if I play here,
Stimulus that's outside that's hurting.
good. We're not going into the red, so that's good.
And it gets into a circuit.
Now I'm going to go back into the edit page, the third page here. And if you look up to the right of where this red piece is, right here, if you slide this to the left, what it's going to do is shrink all the files on the timeline to make them smaller. That way you can get more onto the screen at a time, and you can see relationships of files together. So here, since we haven't done any cuts on this video, the video file is still just one clip. But as you see this, if you make that bigger, now you can only see half the clip. And you'll want to do that, especially if you're making small changes, like pinpoint changes to things. You can make this really big and
Over and over again.
You can make very small changes in audio, especially once you make it really big like that, if you zoom all the way in. Okay, some other things. Okay, so the fourth file down here, Well, the fourth one is fusion. This is something that I would have to show you another time. It can get very complex, but that's not something we are going to use very often. So we don't really need to worry about it. The color page, this is the fifth one here. The only things that I really do with fins here is if you look in the center part where it says curves custom, you can change global changes to coloration here. And if you watch the screen, if I just move this bottom piece to the right just a hair, see how it darkens the darkest parts of the screen? That increases your contrast level. So it makes the darks darker. The upper part of the screen, if it's all far to the right, then it's going to be darker. If you move it to the left, then that brightens the screen up. So what I usually do is I'll brighten the screen up just a hair to kind of make Finn's face look nicely lit. And then I move this bottom one to the right a little bit so that when we brighten this up, we've still got really good contrast. We've got really dark darks, we've got bright brights, and it's just more pleasant to look at. Down here, right below where the screen is, there's a scroll bar, so you can scroll on the timeline. And if I scroll to the end of the timeline, if you look here, we're going to go towards the end. I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit so we can see a little bit closer in. And then let's see how Finn's final part goes here.
It's just where we are, whether we like it or not.
Okay, so like it or not was the last word. So we could start the fade out after that. So again, if I point towards the video file, there's going to be that thing that pops up on the corner. This one is for fade out. So I click it and hold it, drag it to the left, and that will fade out. But this is a little bit of a long fade out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the edge of the screen here and see that pops up. That, if you click it and hold it and drag to the left, that will automatically shorten and then cut the file at that point. And then I'm going to readjust the fade out so that the fade out stays in the same place. Now, this part here, if we listen to the audio, there's some background noises there that I don't want. So I'm going to go into the audio here. And I'm going to make changes. See this, the line here is where you can globally change volume. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in between the vocalizations here. Now I'm going to go up to the inspector and I'm going to click audio up here. And now I can click these little dots to the right. And what those do is they create keyframes where you're saying, okay, I want the volume to be at this point at this exact frame. So I'm going to make that red. Now, using the arrow key on the keyboard, I'm going to press one frame to the right. And now I'm going to make another one. And the reason I'm going to do that is because now if I go down here and I move this up and down, it allows me to change the volume of just this last part without it affecting any of the other volumes. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to drop the volume really low so that whatever comes after these 2 points will be muted out.
Like it or not.
There's still a little bit there. We could get it even more out than that. We could completely block it out. And that's basically it for now. Normally I will watch through the entire video as I'm doing this whole process, make sure that there aren't any errors or any really large gaps in speech that we want to narrow. I don't mind if there are gaps in speech when it's obvious that Finn's thinking about something and is coming up with the right phrase. But if it's something where obviously she's changing what she's thinking, or if it's anything we want to cut out, we can do that at during this point too. Um, okay, so once we have done that, we've edited it, the video, we've done the fade ins, we've got the volume levels correct, we've put um, the title in the introduction in under digital glitch. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the very last page down at the bottom. And for Finn stuff, if I right up here on the left where it says YouTube 1080, that's the basic settings that we're using. So if you click that, it's going to put a whole bunch of specific settings on the left here. I'm going to put the title as chronic pain so we can find it. It really doesn't matter what the title is as long as you know what it is and you can find it. I usually will have it put it directly on my desktop, and then once I've uploaded it to YouTube, then I will put it into a different folder. So this will go to my desktop. It's going to be 1080p, 30 frames a second. It's going to be an MP4 format. The video codec is H.264. And then here, if you click normalize audio, and what that's going to do is it's going to make sure that the volume levels are exactly what YouTube wants. And this, if you look at the standard, it has YouTube listed down here. And that's all you need to do for that. At the middle, near the bottom here, where it says render entire timeline or an in-out range. So we're going to do the entire timeline. If you were just checking a section, like if you wanted to render 30 seconds and just check and make sure that it looks right, then you can do in-out ranges. But for the most part, we just do the entire timeline. Now I'm going to go up here to the left in the middle and click add to render queue. That's going to pop it up here on the right, and it'll show you it's the name is PB chronic pain. Timeline 1 is what we're rendering. We only have one timeline. The name of the file will be chronicpain.mp4. It's going to be on my desktop. And then all you've got to do is click here where it says render all. Now, when you're doing the normalization, it's going to render two things, even though we're only rendering one file. Because the first thing it does is it normalizes the audio. And then the second job is to render the entire video. This can be kind of long sometimes. It depends on how fast your computer is, and on how much we do to the files. The more we do to it, the longer this can take. So looks like we are about finished. And that's it. So once it's completed, I'm going to save this file. So file, save project. And that's really it for the video editing itself. We do other things to get the screenshots for the thumbnails, but for the actual video, that's really all we have to do for most of them. If you have any questions, let me know. And I'm going to check this video and make sure that it looks like it recorded okay. And hopefully this will be informative for you. If it doesn't work, we'll figure something else out.